Inflation may be classified into different types. Our types of inflation. Types of inflation. Based on price level. Classification based on price level. Classification of inflation based on price level. That is, if the average price rise is between 2 and 3% per annum, 2 and 3% per annum, if the annual price level is rising, it is called mild inflation or creeping inflation. It is called mild or creeping inflation. Here, the cost of living variation may not be felt by the people, because very small rise in the general level of prices, very mild, and the cost of living may not be severe, and the people cannot even recognize such a mild inflation creeping into the economy. When the average level of prices is between 3 and 7% or maximum 1 digit 9%. 3 to 7 വരെയാണ് സാധാരണയായിട്ട്, വേണമെങ്കിൽ up to 9% we can permit. 1 digit 9%. Then the second stage that is called trotting inflation. Trotting inflation or walking inflation. Trotting or walking inflation. 3 to 7 or up to 9% we can permit. Second, wherein the rising trend of cost of living we will start to feel. Next, from 9% up to this, we have allowed 10 to 20% annual rise, 10 to 20% running inflation. Definitely we will feel the rising cost of living in the country when average level of prices is increasing by 10 to 20%. If average level of prices is 20 to 100%, 20 to 100%, we call it as galloping inflation or jumping inflation. Galloping inflation, just like a horse jumping, prices will jump from one figure to the other. Galloping inflation. Above 100%, hyperinflation, very dangerous. Hyperinflation. Above 100% rise in the general level of prices, hitting the ceiling and again going above the ceiling, hyperinflationary pressure. This is one classification according to average level of price rise in inflationary period. Number 2, second classification on basis of the reason to inflation, on the basis of the causes of inflation. Reason or causes of inflation, we have what is known as demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation. But the reason is demand pull. What is the reason for demand pull? Increasing money in the hands of the people. Too much quantity of money chasing too few goods and services. Too much quantity of money chasing too few goods and services is what is called demand pull inflation. Increase in the demand. Increase in the demand is because of what reason? Increase in the supply of money in the economy. That supply of money may be black money. Due to more black money in circulation, demand may increase and commodities may not be sufficiently available in the market. Resulting inflation is demand pull inflation. Cause is demand pull. Then, according to the reason, we have cost push inflation. Cost push inflation. Cost push inflation means a rising cost of production. As a result of the rising cost of production, the prices of commodity will go up and up, which is known as cost push inflation. Rising cost of production, reason for inflation in the country, known as cost push inflation. Cost push inflation can be because of what reason? Because of, we may say, wage level spiral. Wage rate will be going on increasing. As a result, cost of production rising, resulting inflation, cost push inflation. In Kerala, we know that since there is a strong trade union is existing, in such states where a strong trade union is existing, always there will be a demand hike in the wage rate. Demand for higher and higher wage rate is usual when the trade union is strong. Especially, we know when there is a scarcity of labor, especially in the skilled and semi-skilled type of labor, if a scarcity is existing and they have strong trade union, cost push. Wage spiral inflation, a common phenomenon, like Kerala. You know, in case of Kerala, there is a scarcity of skilled laborers as well as semi-skilled laborers. Mason, carpenter, electrician, welder, and such categories of workers are not available in Kerala sufficiently. They are working in the Gulf areas. And as the number of persons in this category working in Kerala is very little, insufficient, and they have a strong trade union also, they bargain. They bargain all time for hike in the wage rate, as a result of which cost of production is rising, and the rising cost of production will lead to inflation. And in case of Kerala, maybe one more reason, you see that no kukuli. And such a coolie is not there in any of the countries. Here alone we find such a no kukuli observation charge. And that observation charge, you see, thousands and thousands of rupees for loading and unloading they are demanding. You are forced to pay that. After payment of this no kukuli also, the amount is added. The producer is adding the amount along with the cost. Thereby the price is increased. So we the consumers are actually giving the no kukuli also. The hike in the wage rate due to the scarcity of labor and the strong trade union, their flag is sufficient for a rise in the wage rate, and hence we find inflation usually causing because of cost push inflation. These two are, we may say, the reasons behind the inflation, and so demand pull inflation and cost pull inflation. And number three, modern. There are different concepts on basis of which we can classify inflation. One, we have already seen disinflation. Disinflation. What is disinflation? We have already seen. Decrease in the severity of inflation rate. Decrease in the severity of inflation rate is disinflation. When the rate of inflation is decreasing in a positive rate, positive, not negative. Such a decrease in the severity of inflationary pressure is known as disinflation. Next one. Usually asked question, stagflation. Stagflation, S-T-A-G, stagflation. Usually asked question is stagflation. What is stagflation? I have already shown the link, inflation leading to increasing level of prices, increasing level of prices leading to increasing profit leading to increasing investment will lead to more and more employment opportunity and reduction in unemployment. And a slight inflation is recommended for solving unemployment. If unemployment is existing in the country, a slight inflation is good for reducing unemployment. That is a general assessment. But in countries like India, we find that while inflation is going on increasing, unemployment is also going on increasing without decreasing. Without the unemployment generally is to decrease while inflation is going. That is a theory. That is also empirically found in other countries. But in case of India, we find that while the inflation rate is going on increasing, unemployment instead of decreasing, it is going on increasing. Simultaneous increase of inflation and unemployment together is what is called stagflation. Stagnation in the inflation, stagnation in the field of employment. Stagnation in the field of employment and inflation price hike. Inflationary price hike with stagnationary employment. The coincidence of both lead to stagflation. Stagnation on employment side, price level going on increasing. Inflation plus stagnation is what is known as stagflation, a situation we find in India. That is because of what reason? Because you see that the population growth rate is going on increasing in India, and India is having a good demographic dividend now. India is having a good demographic dividend. Demographic dividend means what? In the age group of 15 to 64. Age group of 15 to 64 is known as demographic dividend. They are working class of person. Working class of person is 15 to 64. Below 15, children prohibited. They cannot work. It is a criminal offence. It is a criminal offence if you employ a boy below 15 years. Up to 15 years, dependent on, they are not supposed to do any contribution to national income. 64 and above 64 also you are supposed to take rest, retirement. You are not supposed to do any work and contribute to national income. They are also they should depend upon their children. Above 64 and below 15 are dependent class. Working class is 15 to 64. Their contribution to national income is what is called demographic dividend. That is called demographic dividend. Demographic dividend is a contribution of the working age group 15 to 64 in the national income of a country. നമ്മുടെ പോപ്പുലേഷൻ സ്ട്രക്ചർ അനുസരിച്ച് 15 to 64 വർക്കിംഗ് ഏജ് ക്ലാസ് ഈസ് ഇൻക്രീസിങ്. Average expected life duration is increasing. The working class people is maximum in case of India. So we find many persons are coming for employment. Many persons are coming for employment because of the demographic structure of the Indian economy. One of the reasons for increasing unemployment while inflation is simultaneously going on, the situation is called stagflation. Number 3, agflation. 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 This word was originated in 2007. In 2007, this word was originated in USA. In USA, there is a district, Merrill Lynch, a district in Merrill Lynch, LYNCH, Merrill Lynch, a district in USA, where in 2007, agricultural commodity prices alone went up and up. Beginning, agricultural commodity prices alone, inflationary price rise, going on increasing. After some time, after 1 or 2 years, it led to a generalized inflation. About the beginning, agricultural commodity prices alone are going on increasing, and finally it resulted into a general inflationary pressure in USA. Such a inflation is what is known as agflation, agricultural price inflation leading to general price inflation. Agflation. Then number 4, core inflation. Asked question, core inflation versus ഹെഡ്ലൈൻ ഇൻഫ്ലേഷൻ ചോദിക്കുന്നതാണ്. കോർ ഇൻഫ്ലേഷൻ വേഴ്സസ് ഹെഡ്ലൈൻ ഇൻഫ്ലേഷൻ. കോർ ഇൻഫ്ലേഷൻ വേഴ്സസ് ഹെഡ്ലൈൻ ഇൻഫ്ലേഷൻ. Core inflation. Core inflation means inflation to industrial manufacturing commodity prices. When you find that the industrial commodity, or we may say manufacturing commodity prices is going on increasing, it is called core inflation. Our core inflation may be due to the wholesale price index number going on rising. When the wholesale price index number is going on rising, industrial products and manufactured products, the prices of such commodity going on increasing, known as the core inflation. Core industry prices of commodity going on increasing, we call core inflation. On the other hand, headline inflation means CPI, consumer price index number going on increasing. CPI or consumer price index number going on increasing. That means if you take a basket full of commodity usually consumed by the average family. Average family, you see, usually consuming some commodity, and such commodity if you take in a basket, that commodity basket is what is known as a consumer basket. Our consumer basket commodity price is calculated what is called consumer price index number. When the consumer price index number CPI is increasing, the consumer price commodities, consumer usually using commodity prices are going on increasing, which will reflect to the higher cost of living and suffering to the lower income strata. The lower income strata will be suffering a lot because of the consumer basket commodity prices is going on increasing, which may lead to many problems. When such a consumer price is going on increasing, cost of living is increasing, this may become a hot news in the headline news in the newspaper. It may be a hot information, headline information. There is consumer price increasing, cost of living increasing, lower section of the population are suffering a lot, and such propaganda will be there. That is why it is known as headline, HEAD, headline information, because it is a headline news. It is a headline news to the newspaper. When the cost of living is increasing, that may be the opposition party may be shouting, and the government policies are very poor, as a result of which cost of living is increasing, they will shout. And the next day it will be the headline news in all newspaper, and therefore such a inflation is what is known as headline inflation. Our headline inflation is consumer price index number inflation, and the core inflation, industrial price inflation, is what is called core inflation. Double dip, another concept, double dip. It is from the US experience 2018 to 2012. You know, from 2002 onwards, USA was facing with a crisis. 2008-9, if you take in the US economy, 2008-9, the economy was facing with a very crisis level, lower level and bottom. The economy was at its bottom level, crisis level in USA during 2008-9. At that time, Obama was the president, and Obama introduced monetary packages to revive the economy, and as a result of the monetary package introduced by the government, there was a revival of the economy. Revival of the economy from downstream was there in 2008-9, etc. But that revival was short period. 2008 introduced, 9-10 there was a revival. But subsequently, again 11-12 period we find the economy was again taken down to a second dip after the revival from the first dip. After the revival from the first dip, the economy was again taken to a second dip immediately in 2012-13 period. So that first dip followed by a second dip. After the revival, which is a short period revival from the first dip, a second dip followed. And from that US experience during the period, we have double dip. First dip followed by the second dip. Interval, very short period revival. When one depression leading to a revival, suddenly there is a second depression leading to what is called double dip. Then number 6, skew inflation. Skew inflation. This word skew inflation is introduced in the Indian Economic Survey report of 2009-10. Economic Survey report of India 2009-10 introduced the concept of skew inflation. Alangil skew inflation is in other words known as lopsided inflation. Lopsided inflation is what is known as skewed inflation. That means in India 2009-10 there was inflation to agriculture, food commodity consumption, food commodity prices were going on increasing without a change in the manufactured sector commodity prices. Manufactured sector commodity prices was somewhat remaining constant. Only the food material commodity, food commodity prices alone was inflationally going down with a lopsided. Not both the sides are moving in the same manner. One side is lopsided. Agricultural commodity, food material commodity, consumption commodities alone, it went up. Whereas industrial commodity remained as such. Symmetry. There was no such a symmetry. There was a lag in the general price structure, which led to the development of the word skew inflation, lopsided inflation. Skew inflation or lopsided, not a generalized inflation. Only consumption commodity prices went on increasing. Manufactured commodity, no change. But consumption means food items. Food items consumption prices alone was going up. The other was somewhat remaining stagnant. And these are also new words, classification according to the current situation.